Hello, my YouTube members. Good evening. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. This is another episode. This is the 13th episode of the Enlightenment and Higher Consciousness. Today's subject is military veteran organizations. I will explain the different subtopics. One, what are military veteran organizations, or U.S. military veteran organizations? What is the purpose of military veteran organizations, the advantages of military veteran organizations, the disadvantages of military veteran organizations, my personal experience with military veteran organizations, and my conclusion and my conclusion and alternative perspective. Number one, what are military veteran organizations, specifically in the United States? The military veteran organizations, specifically U.S. military veteran organizations, are organizations that help or assist U.S. military veterans, or even in other countries, military veterans who have. I'm specifically talking about U.S. military veteran organizations, but I'm sure other countries have their own military veteran organizations to support their veterans internationally in other nations. But I will be specifically talking about U.S. military veteran organizations. They are basically to assist and help. This does not include the VA, the Veterans Administration, because they are a government agency, so they're not. I might briefly mention them, but they're not part of they're not relative to the topic. They do assist and provide services for veterans, but it's not the same topic. I will mention that in a different episode, a different video. It's related because it's associated with its purpose is to help veterans, but that's for a different video. I will briefly mention them, but it's for a different video. Military veteran organizations are to assist and help veterans, and that's basically it. Number two, what is the purpose of military veteran organizations? The purpose of military veteran organizations, specifically U.S. military veteran organization, is to assist and help and provide services and information to obtain services that they need. And in some cases, to help them with their Veterans Administration or VA claims. Legal representation, sometimes they can provide events. They have support groups and things and other activities to help, or to provide services for veterans, mental health, and also medical assistance. The advantages of military veteran organizations. One of the advantages of military veteran organizations is that it helps the military veteran receive the help that he or she needs. It helps the veteran receive the needs, the services they need. because it can be very complicated. And when you're trying to apply for VA benefits or submitting a claim, filing for a claim, organizations can sometimes represent you, provide you legal services, or they have a better understanding of the organization and the hierarchy and know who to talk to and where to send applications. And in some cases, sometimes veterans, especially combat or just non-combat veterans, have a hard time trying to maneuver within the system, especially the VA system. And so these organizations can be very helpful and assisting. And sometimes because of mental illness or physical disabilities, it makes it very difficult to, or sometimes it demotivates the veteran from wanting to seek help. Because if they have to do it themselves, it could be very stressful. And so these organizations, they're created for the purposes of so that veteran is not alone and isolated. Also, the other advantages of military veteran organization is that they provide allows them to interact with other fellow veterans. They provide programs, activities, and creates a sense of camaraderie with other U.S. military veterans, regardless of branch of service, and creates a social network. See, even before the internet, there was always the concept of social networking has always existed since the beginning of human history. The ability to interact is what causes social networking. Now we do it through computers, but even before the internet existed in the 80s, but didn't become marketable till the 1990s. But even before computers were dominating our society, or became an influence in our society, people created a social network simply through talking, or sometimes through the telephone, which would be the only form of long-distance communication. And people would interact in that way. And but now with the internet, it makes it much easier. You can send emails and you can contact these military veteran organizations, and they can assist you in many ways, provide you programs, and they can be beneficial to a certain degree. I was a member of such organization, and I will mention my personal experience later on in this video. The disadvantages of military veteran organizations. Well, the problem with military veteran organizations, unfortunately, they receive funding sometimes from government. I don't know about the federal government, but definitely the state and local governments like county and possibly, sometimes I think city. And the money is very limited. And so unfortunately, since the money is limited, the services they provide are potentially limited. And it doesn't really help the veteran very much. Unfortunately, that limits the opportunities that a military veteran has. Also, sometimes these organizations are run by veterans themselves, and sometimes that creates, you would think that'd be an advantage. It's not such an advantage sometimes, because sometimes the veterans who are members of these organizations, who act as staff members, also have their own problems, and that can create a conflict. Sometimes mental illness or physical disability, and it can create a conflict I mean, I'm sure, nobody would understand a veteran than another veteran. I'm sure the only people that can understand a veteran is another veteran. But I think that sometimes you have to have people who are able to give proper services for a veteran. Sometimes they don't need to be veterans, military veterans themselves, to be able to treat or provide social services for a military veteran. Again, this all was one of the reasons why I had my unfortunate experience with this one organization, and I will explain my reasons. It relates to my unfortunate experience with this military veterans organization, which I will mention later in this video. Sometimes another disadvantage is that sometimes if you're a member, you have to pay. Sometimes a yearly fee, or I'm not mentioning any names of any organizations, but a yearly fee or monthly fee. And sometimes veterans are collecting a pension, and sometimes that's not within their budget. And sometimes some of their services are quite inadequate. Some of the services that these military organizations provide are very substandard. And also trying to help you with the VA. Again, it is interrelated to some degree, but I'm not discussing the VA. Just indirectly, they can be helpful in getting your case started, VA claim or filing for benefits or filing for a service connected or non-service connected claim. But sometimes they could be a little sluggish. They can procrastinate and all that stuff. I think the best thing with dealing with the VA is getting an attorney. Maybe in that case, the military veteran organization would be beneficial because they can assist you in getting an attorney. But that was back many years ago. I guess now with the internet, it's very easy to look up an attorney, so you really don't need a military veteran organization, although it would be helpful. Just going online on the internet is you can find a good attorney that can help you. There are a lot of attorneys and law firms that practice law that help veterans with their claims, or filing for claims for benefits or compensation or service connected or non-service connected pensions and all their military claims, veteran claims. My personal experience with military veteran organizations. Yes, I was a member of a military veteran organization from Wednesday, November 29th, 2023, through Friday, April 19th, 2024. Approximately 5 months and 28 days. I think that's about accurate. And I'm not mentioning any names for ethical and legal reasons, but I will give abbreviations. I had went to one office, and again, I'm not mentioning the office I went to, and I met with a person. His name, well, I'm not mentioning his name, but I will, abbreviate KH. And he had explained to me, we discussed various issues, but he referred me to another organization, which I eventually became a member of. And when I went, I just had to walk right across, it's all in the same location. And all I had to do was go to this other office that was right next door practically. and I met another person. Is again Jr. Not mentioning his actual name. He was a very a veteran. So this organization hired hired veterans to run this organization. And Jr. was very nice to me. I told him my issues, and I gave him my D-214 to prove that I'm a veteran and all that stuff. And told him a little bit. I informed him. I told him about myself, and we had a conversation. He told me about himself, and I was technically, basically registered with this organization or a member. And my first event, or I guess, was a veteran support group. I was put on the news list, on email list, a newsletter which I received through email. I was put on the email list, and in the email list, when I received the email, I got a newsletter of all the programs and events. And let's see, yeah, and I went to my first veterans support group, and I found it very interesting. Felt a little nervous at first. Nice, but I felt at home. I felt I was at home with fellow. I felt at home with fellow veterans. Different branches. Some of them were combat veterans. Some of them were non-combat veterans who served in peacetime. Some were reservists. As a matter of fact, some of the staff would participate in the military veteran support group, and would become part of the support group. Some of them were staff members, some were just members. I guess they were allowed to do that. And I had my first good experience, and it went on for all throughout November, December, and into January. Unfortunately, in late January, I began to experience. I was exposed to false accusations, ridicule, harassment, and eventually removed from that organization. What happened was that during one of these, I would attend other programs that they had, other activities. One of the programs they had was meditation. Another one was yoga, and I really enjoyed those events or activities, and I benefited greatly from it. And then there was a music class, and I really enjoyed it because I always was interested in music, and I actually learned, or not so much learned, but I was reawakened and relearned concepts about music that I had learned once and I'd forgotten. So I already knew about music. I played music as a child, but I had forgotten, and now I was relearning everything that I had forgotten. And but then in late January, something happened. I was a member of veterans. I went to another, because it was held every 2 Wednesdays every month, and during one of those in late January, we had a military veteran support group. They had invited a speaker from the organization that was next door, and it was the same man I spoke to, KH. He was invited as a speaker to discuss filing a claim and how to maneuver within the VA, how to file a claim, how to file a claim for benefits, or how to for benefits or file a claim for a service-connected pension or compensation, or filing a military VA claim. Yeah. And during that time, I was the man was looking for he was the speaker, looking for a seat, and there was always a leader of that support group who runs everything, and his purpose, for lack of a better term, he was a speaker, and his purpose was to run the group, the veteran support group, and he would look at the screen, and he would control the screen through a remote control and basically flip it and inform veterans, and he would pass out flyers about what's going on, what programs are available, what events are upcoming, which was basically the same information. It would be the same, events and the same activities, but sometimes you will have something new developing to inform us of any new activities or anything that's happening. But we always had a schedule, and I would receive the schedule every month through the email list or the newsletter. Well, as this KH speaker, who I had spoken to, who actually got me to join this organization, become a member, sat down, was looking to find a seat. The leader, his name is, who I will, do the initials VZ. I'm calling all the names by initials for reasons of ethics and for legal reasons. VZ made a joke that that at the time I thought it was, he had said, you're going to have a hard time finding a seat. Try to find a seat. Unfortunately, I take up 2 seats. I mean, he was making fun of my obesity. And KH laughed, and a lot of the veterans laughed. And I thought it was a joke, and I kind of, was kind of immune to it, but I was indifferent to it at first. But then, within a few seconds, I reinterpreted it as an offense. And he had a tendency, later on, he had done a couple other, made other statements toward me that eventually I had to approach him and bring it to his attention. And I remember in one, before that happened, there was another, I just remembered there was another military veteran support group, and I had showed up approximately 1 minute late. See, that's another problem. A lot of these veteran organizations, they do things, or they conduct themselves very haphazardly. They provide substandard services. What that means is that, for example, if a particular event or an activity starts at a particular time, it doesn't actually start as scheduled, and it could take up to 10 or 15 minutes before it really starts. And I showed up at these military support group, military veteran support group started at 3 p.m., two Wednesdays every month. And when I showed up 1 minute late. And this very same man, VZ, he looked at me and pointed towards his watch, indicating that I came in late. And there were 4 people, and the event didn't actually start till 3:10, 10 minutes. So I don't know I don't know if he was joking. What was his intention by making that body language, showing me his watch? He was trying to express the concept or the idea that I showed up late, which I couldn't understand, considering that there were only 4 people, including him, and it didn't. The military veteran support group didn't actually start till 3:10. And I began to realize he was a little bit of an obnoxious person. Like I said, I had to eventually approach him and bring it to his attention. Then that's what that event happened. That other incident where the KH was trying to find a seat. That was another Wednesday, and he had VZ made that joke, saying he's taking up 2 seats, and that kind of very much made me very mad. And one day I had stopped by, and unfortunately there was no event, and I was not informed that there was an event that the event was canceled. So again, it shows you the incompetence. Most of all the staff members were mostly veterans, except for the receptionist. Her initials are SA. She was the only non-veteran. She was a receptionist. She was the only non-veteran, and she was not very polite. Every time I walk in the door, I say good morning, ma'am, or good afternoon. She had a cold attitude, a cold-blooded attitude. Who knows? Maybe she had mental illness. And I had met with VZ, and I had talked to. Finally, he made this other joke, saying, when I found out that I had come, that the event was not scheduled, and that it was canceled, even though it was on the newsletter that it was scheduled. VZ told me, well, at least you didn't come in late. You have to say you came in late. Finally, I reached the last. I reached the tolerance level with this man, and I had finally said, listen, I don't mind you being a comedian, but you're condescending me and degrading me, and now you keep accusing me of coming in late when I don't come in late. You're making fun of my appearance when half the veterans in there are all obese anyway. Some of the staff members are, and now you're making condescending jokes about me not having to say I showed up late when your people were creating the schedule. Can't even inform me if it was canceled or not. You can't even run a schedule correctly, And I started getting upset, and I shouldn't have said that, but and I should have talked to the program manager, and her abbreviation initials are AC, and I had problems with her as well. But I wanted to talk to her about it. But he basically said I was just joking. He's a very passive aggressive person, this VZ. And I got very, very upset and reached the point that I had to really let him know that you're crossing the line. And when somebody attempts to cross the line, they get stopped at the line. So again, everything. I think I might have put him in his place, but again, he had a very aggressive attitude. But after me having a discussion with him, I told him that it kind of raised my attention. It was a call for concern. He basically calmed down with me for a while. Finally, another incident that took place was that there was a man named, his initials are JB, and I'm mentioning his name. He would call me consistently, and he ran a farm, and he would make drinks, and he would provide it in the veteran support group. And he was another passive aggressive. I mean, he had severe, in my opinion, I'm not a psychologist, but based on my observative conclusions, he was an extremely mentally ill person. He would constantly call me and then get me into trouble or get me into some kind of a situation. He would instigate a problem, but he is not actually involved in it. One time he asked me to do flyers, and he said, go into the office and ask SA, the receptionist, And when I went in there, she had yelled at me and told me, "Don't get him." And I told her what I was trying to do. She told him, "Don't get him to get you to do. We are not uh, um, a print shop." I understand that. She was very angry, and eventually I would have problems with this man. Then there was an event in February. I think this took place around February. I went to an event, an activity, an in-house. There were two types of activities: in-house that took place in the facility, and there were outside events or activities. The military support group, military veteran support group, took place in-house. But sometimes we had other events and activities that took place outside. That, for a lack of a better term, I don't know the proper terminology. I don't know what they called it, but I figured in-house would be in the facility, and out, outside of the facility, or in-house and outside would be uh, facilities that events that took place outside of the outside events. That's the terminologies I'm using. I don't know what their proper terminologies were, but yes, there was one yoga class I was supposed to go to, and I had a problem with my family member, and I had an issue. I had to go somewhere, but I really wanted to attend this event, and I was running late, and the event started at 12 noon, and I got there at 12:10. I had to go to the bank, and there was another office I had to go to, so I was running late, but I still wanted to attend the event. So I was really pressed for time, and I did get there. I got there late, not terribly late, just 10 minutes, which there are other veteran members, military veteran members who had come even later than that. But what happened was I showed up. It started at 12, and the program manager, her initials are AC. I'm not mentioning her name. Again, I'm not mentioning any names. I will identify them by their initials. She, for ethical and legal reasons, she was a program manager. She ran the whole organization. And what happened was that I was running late, and she noticed that I came in late. I had spoken to her. She also would participate in the military veteran support group. She would either be the leader of that group for that event, for the support group time, or she would just be a participant, acting as a member. As I was trying to get to the door, as I went inside the facility to go to the event, she had come out of her office and basically screamed at me. She told me, "How dare you come late to our events?" And I tried to explain, but she insisted. She wasn't interested in hearing my excuses, or my legitimate excuses. And she basically warned me that if I ever came in late again, that she would not allow me to participate in any event or activity. And I was I held restraint, because I had to, really give myself a lot of credit. I held a restraint because came very close to actually telling her something, responding in a very aggressive way. But I, kept my cool and held my restraint. I ended up attending the event, spoke to the instructor, but the instructor said, "Well, we didn't start till 12:15. I actually arrived late, so since you came at 12:10 and the event didn't start until 12:15, it was only 5 minutes late." So, and that was, then I didn't feel that concerned about it. I explained to her how the program manager felt, and didn't have a response to that. She basically said, well, there's nothing really I can do about that. And at that point, I began to have a different perspective. I began to become more ambivalent about this organization. There is another veteran who I will name by his initials, GG, who was a combat veteran in the Vietnam War. And he and I had spoken, and he had told me of his frustrations with this organization. Very frustrating. We actually had shared the same opinion for different reasons, but we shared the same opinion. And finally, at the end, there was another person there. His name is, who I will identify as initials JH. He was a staff member, and he was an ex-Marine, U.S. Marine. He was very, again, the opposite is passive-aggressive. He was an extremely introverted person. What I mean, he didn't like to say hello. In my entire time I was a member of that military veteran organization, I only spoke to him for 30 seconds. And what actually happened with my communication was involved him asking me after the military support group, military veteran support group ended. He was cleaning up and he asked me, "Is this drink yours? Is this can of soda yours?" And I said no. That was my only interaction in that with him. I later spoke to him in a bar, and that was another problem. He was actually intoxicated. But, yes, I attended a couple of outside events that were not hosted by the organization, but they promoted it to the newsletter. And I saw this. There was one where they were dedicating. It was in recognition of a fallen sailor, a U.S. Navy sailor, who had died. And I saw him there, JH, the introverted veteran, military veteran. He was very reserved, and I saw him there one time, and I nodded. He not actually said hello. He nodded his head in greeting, and I responded. And I was about to leave anyway, so I went over to him. I went to another event before that. This was somebody's birthday, actually. It was a veteran's birthday, and he organized it. And basically, the newsletter stated that I had, the newsletter scheduled this famous veteran's birthday, and it was taking place in the same bar. I'm not mentioning the name of the bar, but I did show up. They had dinner and everything and all that stuff. Then later, there was an event, and this was in dedication and recognition to a U.S. Navy sailor who died. That's when I met. I hung out there, had dinner, whatever, talking to having conversations, conversing with people. And that's when I met this JH, the introverted U.S. Marine veteran. And he basically nodded his head, and I was surprised because he doesn't like to converse with people, or he's extremely reserved. If I had to, judge him on a scale between introvert and extrovert, he'd be an introvert off the scale. I mean, he would be right on the edge of being off the scale. But he actually said hello. I mean, he nodded his head in trying to communicate, in a greeting, and I was kind of perplexed and surprised, but I responded. And after the night was over, I left, and I saw him. He was there across from me, and I decided I made the mistake of actually talking to him. I should have just left the bar, but we spoke. I wanted to thank him and the staff for providing services. I wanted to compliment him and the organization for the good work. and the services that they provide. He was very thankful for it and shook my hand. And I asked him, we don't really talk very much. You don't seem to talk with very. You don't talk to people very much, and we never really got to talk much except one time for like a few seconds. He says, "Well, I'm an asshole." That's what he said. At that point, and I said, "Well, I guess sometimes we're all assholes. Sometimes." I began to realize I'm not an expert in psychology, but I will give myself some. I don't like to brag, but I like to say that I can claim with confidence that I read people very well, and this is a self-defense mechanism. This is an ability I've developed in order to protect myself and also to determine whether evaluate if I can interact with this person. Sometimes my judgment. Sometimes I don't go with my instincts and I make a mistake, or sometimes my judgment and my reading is off, and I misjudge that person. But about 90% of the time, I'm pretty accurate. I began to realize he has severe mental illness, and I find it pretty ironic that he works in a military veterans organization when it should be a civilian working there. But the way he behaves, he doesn't like to socially interact with people. So I don't know how can he possibly work in with that kind of an attitude, work in a military veterans organization. But they let him work there. I guess maybe he's under some program, maybe to the VA or something. So I started talking to him some more, and all of a sudden I had my hand on the. There were two women, and the chair to the left, closest to me, I had my hand. Because I had a problem with my foot, and I was wearing a cane, and I had pain on my right foot. Then the pain went away. It went to my heel. Later on, it went to my right foot, and then it went to my right heel. So I'm coming full circle. But the two women, the woman to the left of me, who was closest to me, I had put my hand in the chair, in the back of the chair, and I probably had a bad habit, a forcive habit. And the woman to the right was talking to JH, and I think she might have mentioned that my hand was on the chair. I had no intentions of doing anything to the woman to the left of me. But he had JH told me, let the woman eat, and I said, "What do you mean, let the woman eat? What are you talking about?" This is your hand. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Because I had a cane. I should have explained, but I'm in a bar full of people, and it's really, loud, and I didn't have the opportunity to explain why I did that. I was trying to protect my left foot that was in pain, that was going through the healing process. I decided to leave because I'm realizing it's not worth conversing with this man. He acts too. He's overreactive. He's reactive. He had trying to convey the fact, or he was trying to imply that I was doing something malicious when I wasn't. So I eventually was trying to find my way out, and the guy, he pointed to the direction. I kind of got lost, and I found the elevator because it took place downstairs, and then I went up. And I realized he's not worth conversing with or socially interacting with. And the other problem was with this other. There was another outside event. It was called. It was trades fair, and I'm not going to say it took place in a high school. I will not. I will keep that anonymous in what high school it took place in. That is going to remain confidential, but again for legal and ethical reasons. But I saw this JB. He was promoting his drinks, smoothies, and he invited me to his house a couple of times. Met his family. He runs a farm basically. But he doesn't have the right idea. I think he's trying to. He promotes drinks. He makes drinks from plants. So he's a farmer, but he produces smoothies and drinks from plants. So he makes good product. I don't deny that, but he has again another passive aggressive. Very, he tells me he wants to do something with me, but he tells me I don't trust you. Or he's always making some sarcastic comment, saying that you don't know how to get to Vegas. I said I'll take you to New York City. How about that? He was very aggressive. A lot of these veterans have severe mental illness, and especially in this organization. They're very defensive, I guess maybe because of post-traumatic stress disorder. Um, and which a lot of them mentioned during the military veteran support group. And so finally I had went to this trades fair, saw JB, and I asked him if he needed any help. He promotes his when I went to other outside events, he had also promoted having lectures or doing a seminar or whatever you want to call it. And most of the veterans, there was one event where there is basically another organization that has a bar, and it's basically a place where people sit down, and I would go to that event. It's always held every month or something like that, from what I remember. And he was there acting as doing a seminar about earth to table, the benefits of nutrition. Only 10 people were listening to him, and out of 100, only 10%, out of 100 people, 10% were listening to him. The rest were all talking, and he repeated himself. Anyway, at the high school, the trades fair, I was there, and he completely turned from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde. I said, listen, I had complimented, as a matter of fact, the day before that event, outside event at the high school, we had another support. That was a support group, the military veterans support group. And I had complimented him in front of everyone because I would drink his drinks. I would drink his plant drinks or smoothies. And I had complimented him in front of everyone how some of my symptoms were physiological symptoms were being treated because of his plants. So he thanked me very much for bringing that up. And then finally, but the next day we had an outside event, and it was the trades fair at the high school. And when I was there, oh my God, I told him, hey, remember me? What's up? If you need any help, I'm here to help. And he was like, I don't need your help. And he responded with a very aggressive, rude. His response was extremely aggressive. I said, well, if you need my help, call me. But I wasn't just there to see him. I wanted to look at the other stands, other trades, and other, work stand, organizations that had stands that offered, schooling or job fair, that offer services that can lead to a job in other, fields, And it took me about an hour or two. And then finally I returned to him and I said, listen, if you need some help, I know this stuff just as you do, He says, well, if you think you do, his response was, if you think you do, get your own table. And he, again, was very aggressive. He was very obnoxious. He turned from Dr. Jekyll to Mr. Hyde. And I was like, all right, thank you very much. I don't know what this is about. And I basically had enough, I had enough of this, and I couldn't take it anymore. So finally, I went home. I wasn't upset, but it was slightly annoying. I went home and I texted him because he used to call me at least once every 2 weeks, or sometimes once a week. And sometimes when we had conversations over the phone or through text message, if we had conversed on the text message, cell phone text message box, he had threatened that if, because I didn't agree with the fact that he was the number one smoothie, or if I didn't agree with his ideas, or I didn't agree he was the best farmer on the planet. Sometimes, so one day I had to call him out. I said, "Listen, you're not the best. There are other people in the world, and I didn't know who, but there's no way he can be the best." And he finally had to give in to that, or accept the fact that I might be correct. He had, in one of our conversations, he had threatened that if I kept bothering him, which I didn't bother him, I just didn't agree with his outrageous claims. He said that he's going to call the police and have me put away. I said, and he did that a couple of times from what I remember. So I sent him on April 18th, on Thursday, April 18th, 2024, at night, I had sent him a cell phone message. I sent him a message on his cell phone message text box, a text letter, explaining that I really don't want him to contact me anymore. I don't want him, do not want him to interact with me. You do your own thing. I don't want your smoothies. I don't want you. And I also, I think it was a mistake, but he had, I told him that I didn't appreciate him telling me he was going to call me the police and have me put away for something I didn't, if no crime was committed, if I didn't commit a crime. But that if he ever did that again, and I am arrested, charged, convicted, and sentenced for any amount of time because of him, for something I didn't do, that there would be consequences. And I sent that message to him, and I ended the text letter with that last statement. The next day I received an email from AC, the program manager, and she sent me saying that sent me an email saying that I had been banned, removed from the organization, due to the fact that you had threatened veterans, more than one with an S, that's a plural. And I never threatened anybody anyway, but let alone more than one veteran. I never threatened any veteran, let alone more than one veteran. I don't know where she got this information. She had, I think that JB took that text letter and gave it to AC, the program manager. I don't know what he showed her, either partially that text letter or all of it or whatever he did, but he showed her the text letter. And I think she tried to call the supervisors of the organization, the parent organization, or the organization that runs this organization, and didn't know what to do. She had no contingency plan, no protocol, and they left it up to her discretion to make a decision. And even if it was within her powers, and within her powers and duties to take such action, her decision was illegitimate at best. She had banned me, and I believe her reasons were she used the power of her position to implement her ulterior motive. She's trying to resolve something in her head. And when I received an email, I called immediately, and she told me she was not she's not going to take it into any consideration. Her decision was final. Then I had to go to the organization that runs this organization. I will not mention any names or the name of the organization for legal or ethical reasons, but one of the CEO, his name is AO, and I had spoken to AO. He was a CEO of the organization that runs that organization, the Military Veterans Organization. And I told him about the behavior of certain military veteran members of this organization. I told him everything that happened. I sent him emails, and I told him I'm going to consider and evaluate my options and decide which options which options are available and which options are the best. And he's felt that maybe I was threatening him, but I told him I came to him. I told him I came to him first to see if this could be solved amicably. And he, after an hour of conversation, probably more, he basically decided that he doesn't want to uplift the band. And I said, I don't understand why. I've talked to you. I told you everything. This was not my fault. I was verbally abused, insulted. He told me he had conducted his own investigation, went there and asked veterans. But it's mob, it's a cult. That's what this thing has turned into, a cult. And nobody's going to admit what happened there. It was very frustrating. He told me that no one knew anything. Of course, the wall of silence. And everybody's going to protect each other. Members of the group are going to protect each other like a cult. The loyalty is one of the main factors in an organization. Dedication and indoctrination, but loyalty is one of the strongest factors in being part of an organization. So sometimes for the benefit, and sometimes sometimes it's not always. Sometimes that loyalty can have evil purposes. So loyalty is not always good. It depends what you're being loyal to. So basically, he didn't want to uplift the band. It's so on Friday, April 19th, 2024, I was officially removed from this organization. I had written letters, sent emails, and spoke to a certain couple of newspapers, but nobody wants it. They don't see this as a priority. And I have been deprioritized. Also, I think that word has gotten around, and I cannot. They don't want to deal with it because it involves veterans. But so that's pretty much my story. In conclusion, and my alternative perspective, I have to say my conclusion to this whole thing. Or my enlightened and higher consciousness perspective. I'm going to give you an alternative perspective, and that might be unconformist and may sound even extremist. I have nothing against military veterans organizations, but an organization, a nation, or a group of people is only as efficient as the people who run that nation, organization, or group. If it's run, if it's run incompetently and inefficiently, that is going to. If the members are inefficient and incompetent, then the organization will be run inefficiently and incompetently. Unfortunately, the organization I was a member of is a very incompetent organization. Its members are, in my opinion, including, it's the program manager, and including some staff members, not all staff members. The only person I actually liked there was JR. But most of the staff members, in my opinion, do not have, including the program manager, does not have the qualifications to run a military organization. Now, I read the biography of AC. She was in the Army, she was an officer, and unfortunately, something very unfortunate and a traumatic experience happened to her during West Point. So I'm not without compassion, but at the same time, I understand a lot of veterans have PTSD from war or peacetime or during, but, as a matter of fact, most traumatic experiences happens during peacetime, ironically, than in war. Most military veterans who suffer trauma usually suffer during peacetime rather than war, which I find pretty ironic, but or sometimes both. But many of the staff members, in my opinion, are not qualified. You're dealing with an organization that's supposed to service military veterans. Now, you would think, who can run a military veteran organization than military veterans? That would sound convenient and that would sound, convenient and practical. But in reality, there are certain disadvantages with it. If they have mental illness themselves, they can create conflicts. I remember in one military veteran support group meeting, there were shouting matches. We had two veterans who were women. One was in the Navy and one was in the Air Force. They basically, shouting and screaming about politics. Sometimes somebody would be speaking and other people would be talking, and the leader of the group, of the military support group, military veteran support group, would have to tell the rest of everyone else to keep quiet while this veteran is talking. And sometimes there'd be shouting matches, some people supporting Donald Trump or Joe Biden or, whatever, talking politics and be in conflict because they're on opposite sides or don't disagree because they don't agree politically because they represent certain political parties, or they or they're part of the opposite side of this political spectrum. I think that here is my conclusion and the alternative perspective, which might sound very unconformist and extremist, but even it will sound controversial. Military veterans are pawns in an overall picture. They are, when they serve their country, that's a very proud thing. It's one of the most proud things that any person could ever do. And some countries have different attitudes about it. I also mentioned this in one of my earlier episodes or videos about the military. In the United States, we value our veterans. What they say is one thing, what they do is another, despite the fact that veterans are often well respected in the United States as compared, in contrast to other nations, and compared to other nations. In the United States, we respect and give recognition, acknowledge our veterans, U.S. military veterans, but they don't get the support they need. They're seen, they're deprioritized, and despite the fact of all this recognition, I've had people thank me for my military service, and I appreciate it. I remember one time I was in a supermarket, and this young man came up to me and so wanted to shake my hand, because he saw my hat. And I turned and I looked. I noticed his mother was trying to tell him, I guess must have told him to come up to me and shake my hand, because they probably noticed I was a veteran because I was wearing a military hat, a hat would had a military insignia. The government sees military veterans as, they see military personnel who serve as pawns, and once they are used, they are forgotten. and that is a fact. Despite the fact that we acknowledge and recognize our veterans and thank them for their military service, conceptually, in actual practice, they are not given the respect. They are not given the services. The budget should be a lot higher, and the VA can do a lot better job. And again, I will talk about the VA in a different video, but I will mention briefly that the VA is extremely incompetent. They say that people will sometimes rise to the level of their incompetence, or they can rise to the level of their competence, depending on what they choose. And in this case, everybody has reached the level of their incompetence. It's a reality that most people don't want to acknowledge. People just simply, I was recently, I volunteered for American Veterans Traveling Tribute. That is an organization that has a replica of the Vietnam Veterans Wall, and I had participated as a volunteer in the setup, and I was it was started from September 18th, Wednesday, September 18th, until about Monday, Sunday, and then Monday, Friday. Yeah, the 23rd was the last day on Sunday, and on Monday they took everything apart. I had participated as being part of the setup crew, and I ended up staying longer because then I became a wall monitor, and that was all on the 18th, and they had the ceremony and all that stuff. And then after that, on Saturday, I didn't visit it to become. I didn't visit the memorial wall, the Beyond Veteran wall, to become a volunteer. I simply wanted to be a visitor. I don't know anybody who died in the Vietnam War. Obviously, there were a lot of the organization I was a former member of was there, and they probably knew I was there. And there was another man who interacts with them. His name is AR. His initials. I'm not mentioning names. He's a member of the organization that is next. That helped me become a member of that organization I was removed from. And he was there. He knew about everything that happened. I had spoken to him over the phone, and he basically justified the decision and agreed with the decision that AC, the program manager, made. He said, "You did threaten that man." I didn't threaten anybody. I was responding to a threat made by JB, the military veteran member. Nothing I can. There's nothing else much I can say. I am very disappointed. Again, I don't know if this happened to other veterans. I have spoken to a newspaper that was willing to print my story in their newspaper. It could have been a potential news story. I had spoken to a writer who was considering. I told him about my potential news story about this issue, and he was considering printing my story, this story, in his newspaper or online news website. And he was willing to trade that information or provide that same information to other media companies, radio, newspaper, radio, online news websites. Unfortunately, he's been having problems, so he cannot do my story, but he still has me in mind. I don't know when he's going to do this, but he was the only one. The other newspapers were not interested, and I think that somebody might have said something or pressured them not to do it. That's my theory. No, conspiracy theory. Yeah. But that is the situation. Another thing I wanted to mention, I had made a friend. His name is Gigi. I think I mentioned him before. He and I had went to his house and we had spoken about the. I had helped him at his house. He had needed some work done, and I was able to do a job that he didn't have to do. And we drank iced tea. We talked. He told me about his military combat in Vietnam, his military combat experience in Vietnam. He's a U.S. Marine combat veteran of the Vietnam War. He told me he did not like that organization. He said there was too much fighting. Nothing made any sense. And coming here, he literally criticized AC, the program manager. I told him that this organization, that this woman does not have the qualifications to being a program manager. She has an extremely, she's very reactive rather than proactive. She does not have the skills to make a decision. She has no contingency plan. She doesn't follow protocol, and and she runs an investigation haphazardly. She doesn't seem to. She's basically is not capable of making an objective decision. She's very overly emotional, which is something that I don't think, that's a skill. That's not a type of personality you want if you want to serve veterans. Veterans have their own problems, and the last thing they need is another veteran yelling, screaming, or having an emotional outburst. I understand she has mental illness, which I think she does. Maybe she's trying to resolve something in her head. I don't know. Well, you can take the information for what it's worth. I hope I've provided a lot of valuable information about military veteran organizations. You can, if you want, if you find my videos very interesting, you can subscribe to my channel. If you have an opinion, feel free to comment in the comment box. Well, that's about it. I don't know what else much to say other than the fact that I enjoyed telling my unfortunate experience in a military veterans organization, a military U.S. veterans organization. Well, until we contact each other again, I want to wish all my YouTube members good luck, and may God bless you all. Hold on. Oh, I just wanted to mention one thing. I just wanted to say I'm not doing this video to try to get revenge. I want to warn other veterans about this. And I wanted to make sure that this doesn't happen to other veterans. Because I noticed that I wasn't the only one who had problems. My friend Gigi no longer attends that veteran organization. And he recently moved anyway, so. But I still get in contact with him, So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to thank all my YouTube members for watching this video. Again, comment or if subscribe if you like my videos, and if you have an opinion about my videos or this particular video, leave a comment in the comment box. Again, you could take the information for what it's worth until we contact each other again. Until my next video. I want to wish all my YouTube members good luck, and may God bless you all.